Consumers in Asian emerging markets are poised to be a key driving force behind global consumer growth in the future, a key topic here at the NZZ Capital Market Forum. And with us now to discuss the rise of the Asian consumer is Kevin Lyne-Smith, Global Head of Equity Research for Private Banking at Credit Suisse. Kevin, consumer spending patterns are changing. What's the driving force behind all of this?
I think what it is really is over the last 2 decades we've seen a tremendous expansion of manufacturing within Asia, and of course that has a trickle-down effect in terms of Asian consumers. They've seen their wealth increase as wages have increased tremendously over the last 2 decades, and as a result they've been purchasing more items.
So what is it that Asian consumers want?
Asian consumers are very similar to consumers in other developed markets. It's what you get sees the difference is obviously there's an element of cultural difference, but also in terms of what's important within the society. So you see spending as they move up the wealth curve. You'll see there's a reduced percentage spent on things like staples like food, and increased spending on discretionary items.
And how do some of the markets within Asia then vary?
There's quite a big difference actually. Underlying you'll see spending in places like Indonesia, which is at an earlier stage in its development. They're just moving out of essential spending and just starting to spend a little bit more on discretionary items. So it's not really evolved, but somewhere like China you see strong spending on things like healthcare, education is very important, so a tremendous increase there. While at the same time saving rates are maintained at about 30% of disposable income. If you go to India, where we see a slightly different flavour there, healthcare has taken less prominence in terms of discretionary spending, but education is more prominent than in China, for example, where we see an increase of about 35% in secondary education for children in private education, but also adults have seen a 12% increase in the last survey we did.
And how are rural consumers' purchasing habits different from those of their city-based counterparts?
Well, I think one of the trends we talked a lot about in things like the mega trends is urbanisation, and as we've seen, the move into cities has triggered a lot more in terms of brand awareness, and obviously there's a peer pressure and trends following trends, so we see tremendous expansion of things like brands within those markets.
And do you think Asia will replace America as the driver of global consumer growth?
Well, to put things in perspective, on our last wealth report, you saw there, even now, if we project forward to 2016, you'll see that China, who's been the biggest market, is about half the size of the US. So while it is growing its importance, I think there's still some way to go before it replaces the US.
So how can investors cash in on this opportunity?
Well, I think it's some of the individual trends I talked about earlier. Education, clearly educational services could be an opportunity. Healthcare is certainly an opportunity. We know demographics are moving towards, for example, China, where we see an aging population. So in the medtech space, you'd see like hip and knee replacements, spine, medtech devices are also important. But also things like banking services, where it's still at an early stage in development in many of these markets. So as the level of sophistication of the consumer increases, then we'll see an opportunity there to expand services.
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Thank you.